Dorian Matthews had spent nearly a decade making deliveries across downtown Phoenix. He knew every alley, every service entrance, and every receptionist who barely acknowledged his presence. The work wasn't glamorous, but it paid the bills, and he took pride in doing it well. At Whitmore & Klein, a high-end marketing firm, he was just another uniform, a background figure ignored by executives sipping overpriced coffee. He had grown used to the indifference, until the day it turned into outright mockery. Dorian had never been the type to seek attention. He worked in silence, carried out his job efficiently, and never asked for more than what he had earned. He knew people like the executives at Whitmore & Klein. They had a certain way of looking at the world, a way that excluded people like him from their version of success. But what they didn't know was that Dorian wasn't just another delivery guy. He had plans, ambitions, and most importantly, patience. One afternoon, as Dorian set a package on the counter, a voice cut through the office noise. "Can you imagine if the delivery guy was our boss?" Laughter followed. Dorian kept his expression neutral, but felt heat rise in his chest. He recognized the voice. Ryan Caldwell, a senior executive always dressed in tailored suits, always cracking jokes loud enough for others to hear. "Please," a woman added, smirking. "He's probably good at lifting boxes, not leading meetings." More laughter. Dorian didn't react, but the words stuck with him. It wasn't just arrogance, it was certainty. The belief that someone like him could never be in charge. He left the office, walking past rows of glass-walled rooms filled with people who barely noticed him. Just another delivery guy. Just another man passing through. As he reached the exit, he caught his reflection in the glass, his uniform, his rough hands from years of labor. They saw only that, and for the first time it bothered him. He had heard people say similar things before, but today was different. Maybe because he had finally grown tired of it. Maybe because, for the first time, he wasn't content with just doing his job. He wanted more, and that realization was all he needed to start making a move. That night, after his shift, he parked outside his small Mesa apartment and sat in silence, gripping the steering wheel. He had always told himself that what people thought of him didn't matter, but today that logic didn't hold up. He needed to talk to someone. He called the only person who understood him, his older brother Malcolm. "Had one of those days," Dorian admitted. Malcolm chuckled. "Let me guess, some rich folks made you feel like you weren't supposed to be in their space?" "Something like that. But today was different. They laughed, like the idea of me being more than a delivery guy was impossible." There was a pause. Then Malcolm said something unexpected. "Good." "Good?" Dorian frowned. "Yeah. Means you're finally tired of it. Now what are you going to do about it?" Dorian sat back, thinking. He had always been good with numbers, with strategy. As a teenager, he flipped sneakers for profit. Later, he moved on to cars, then stocks. He had been running numbers for years, making smart investments, even helping struggling businesses turn around, but he had never gone all in. Until now. Dorian had been playing it safe, working a steady job, investing on the side, making smart choices, but never taking a real risk. That night he decided that would change. Dorian spent months analyzing Whitmore & Klein. On the surface they looked successful, but they were bleeding clients, sinking under bad leadership. He wasn't the only one who noticed. Private investors were looking for a way out. He saw an opportunity. Through silent negotiations, he began buying shares, approaching desperate investors who saw no way forward. Money talked, and Dorian had the leverage. One by one, they signed over their shares. Weeks of late-night meetings, careful calculations, and strategic moves led to one final moment. As of this morning, Dorian Matthews was the majority owner of Whitmore & Klein. And the people who once laughed at him, they were about to find out exactly who he was. He didn't rush into the office that morning with an announcement. Instead, he watched, observed. Let them continue on, oblivious to the fact that everything had changed. He wanted to enjoy the moment, because soon the entire company would be forced to face reality. Dorian stood outside the towering glass building, looking up at what was now his company. He took a deep breath, squared his shoulders, and walked inside. For the first time in years, he wasn't just delivering a package, he was delivering change. Dorian entered the Whitmore and Klein office with quiet confidence. The receptionist, who once barely acknowledged him, now looked up in confusion. He didn't have a package today. He had something far more significant. Authority. He walked straight to Richard Langford's office, the CEO who had coasted on reputation for years. Langford barely looked up as Dorian stepped in. "I wasn't expecting a delivery today," he muttered. Dorian set a thick envelope on the desk. "You weren't." "You should read this." Langford frowned, flipping through the documents. His face paled. This is a mistake." "It's not," Dorian replied calmly. "I own Whitmore and Klein now, and your time is up." Langford's mouth opened as if to argue, but the truth was undeniable. His reign was over. Chapter 6. The Announcement. The news spread through the office like wildfire. Employees whispered, uncertain and anxious. Dorian called a meeting. As they gathered, he took his place at the front of the room. "As of this morning, I'm your new boss," he stated. The room fell silent. Ryan Caldwell scoffed. "You're joking?" Dorian met his stare. "Do I look like I'm joking?" The office had never been quieter. Dorian studied the room. "If you work hard, you have nothing to fear. If you're here for a paycheck, there's the door." By the end of the day, termination notices were sent. Dead weight was cut. A new era had begun. Dorian stood in Langford's former office, staring at the city skyline. He had done it. But this wasn't about revenge. It was about proving himself right. A knock on the door. Ellen, Langford's former assistant, stepped inside. "Everything okay?" He turned to her, a slight smile forming. "Just getting used to the view." This was just the beginning. Whitmore and Klein would rise again under his leadership, and no one would ever underestimate him again.